I became sick in 2016, and it took them a while to figure out what was wrong with me, but I had Lyme, and I had another co-infection, and I was having a very hard time just living. I was starting to be paralyzed on the left side, and my legs and my arms were not working. My chiropractor is the one who figured out that I had Lyme. It took the medical practice a year to say, yes, you do have Lyme. And so since that time, I have done several treatments that worked for a very short time, and then I would go back to feeling terrible. When I was sick, trying to describe it to somebody, the best description I could have was that I was under water in a swamp trying to walk to the other side. And on my good days, I felt like my head was above the water and my body was still trying to do the same job. And then another way to describe it was I had a migraine of my body. Like I couldn't handle light. I couldn't handle loud sounds, even wonderful worship music. I just couldn't. Everything just was too much. I worried about what people thought of me. And I would go to, if I felt good on Monday, I would go to the grocery and somebody from church would see me. And they would say, oh, I didn't see you at church yesterday. And I'd be like, yeah, I was having a bad day. And I could tell in their eyes, it was like, oh, you didn't feel good yesterday, but you feel okay today. And so it only took two people kind of acting that way that then I was paranoid. And I thought everybody thought that. No one believed me. I even thought about going to another city to go to the grocery. But I didn't because I didn't feel good enough to do that. I went through depression, and it was a weird depression because in my life I've had to deal with depression, but this was a depression that was a depressed body in a way. I very lethargic, and so I guess it affected me psychologically. At one point, my Lyme doctor told me it had crossed the blood-brain barrier, and that's why I was starting to not be able to drive, and I wasn't able to. I'm a very organized person, and I wasn't organized for all those years. I had to stop driving, and I had 3 different levels of when my Lyme, the word would be flare, when I would have Lyme flares. And one was I was okay, and it was a good day. And then the next level down was I'm not 100%. This is the things I tell my friends. And then the next level down was I'm having a very bad day. And so I could hang out with my friends on the good days, and the medium days, they could come and hang out with me. I couldn't drive. And on the bad days, I did nothing. I laid on the couch. I laid in my bed. Rick would have to make dinner. I would text him sometimes and say, can you pick up pizza? And so that's been since 2016. And so it's been a long time. And I had close friends that knew everything and were able to help with as much as they could. But mainly, I just needed to be loved and accepted because my whole life turned upside down. I used to lead Bible studies and form D groups, and I taught teenagers, and I led homeschool groups every church that we moved to. And then I moved here, and I got sick, and everything stopped.
Chronic Lyme and the other disease that Deb has is brucellosis. Both of them impacted really every part of our life in terms of what we could do. In the morning, we'd have plans for what we were going to do later in the day, and I would just say, "How you doing?" And on the days that Deb was impacted the most, it was like, we're not doing anything. We'd talk about going on vacation, and we went on vacation, but Deb would always say, I'm only going with you because I know that you understand. And if we're someplace else and I have a bad day, we just won't do anything. And if you're okay with that, we'll still go. But it impacted our ability to do things together as a couple. It impacted our ability, even in terms of when we were with our extended family. I could tell just in a glance how she was feeling, And when she was at her worst, she couldn't think, couldn't process, couldn't do much of anything. Difficult things I tend to just roll with, if that makes any sense. And so, like when we talked about going on vacation or going someplace, it was like, you know what, if we go and you're not feeling good, we'll stay in a hotel. We'll do whatever. And that's just kind of the way it was. And it was harder, obviously, on her than me, because there was this sense of, is this what life is going to be like for the rest of my life?
I didn't understand, how could I be a pastor's wife and be this sick, not even be able to cook for my family? And it was debilitating. There's no other way to describe it. I had a chronic illness, and no one can really understand that unless they're living it. But I just want to say it's just very hard to live in the world and have a chronic illness. Well, Rick, this year, I think in February, said to me, we're going on a mission trip to Sri Lanka. I'd really like you to go. And he knew how my life was. So I was like, no. And he goes, will you pray about it? And I thought, yes, I can pray about it. And so all those months, I didn't want to go. I had no part of me that wanted to go. I felt like I would be a burden. I felt like I wouldn't be able to help. And why would I go on a mission trip? I almost need a mission trip to come to me. And so I was struggling. And I never got an answer from God. I just kept praying and praying. It was on my list. So every day I would pray, Lord, do you want me to go to Sri Lanka? But I don't want to go. I mean, that's kind of the conversation that would happen. So we met with the group that was going, and I was just sitting there with everyone. And I leaned forward and said, so what are we going to do in Sri Lanka? And everybody was like, what? And I thought in that moment that I did not say those words. That was the Holy Spirit. And so when I got home, I knew then that God wanted me to go to Sri Lanka. And the next morning I was doing a quiet time, and like God does, it totally fit. It reaffirmed that, yes, I was supposed to go to Sri Lanka. And from that point on, I had peace, which made no sense. And my kids especially were like, wow, Mom, that you're not nervous, you're not anything. I said, right, I'm almost not even excited. I have so much peace. And so, unbeknownst to me, I kind of had an idea of what that would be like. If God told me to go to Sri Lanka, he was going to make me feel good. So we go to Sri Lanka. I felt terrible. It was hot and humid, which causes Lyme flare. And I just could hardly get up in the morning. And then I'd go eat breakfast, and then we'd get in the cars and we'd go do our thing, and I would just kind of be a zombie. It was pretty much one foot in front of the other. And I didn't even have time to process it until we were on the flight home. The whole plane is asleep, and I'm wide awake. And I was like, you know what? You told me to go to Sri Lanka, and I went, and I felt terrible. This makes no sense. I am never going on another. Now, I'm telling you, I was angry. Like, if they had been sleeping, I might have stood up and screamed and yelled. I have never been that upset with the Lord. And I just said, I'll never go on another mission trip, and I'm never going to ask you. So that was out of my system, and I rode the rest of the way home, still kind of, not wanting to talk to the Lord. And the next morning, in quiet time, I knew it was my fault, that the same thing that we all do, in that I thought it would look a certain way in my expectation. And so I even told him, I'm really sorry, it's not your fault. And I felt his smile, actually. But I was very relieved that I had worked through it that quickly, because that was Monday night, and then Tuesday morning. Then life kind of kept being normal. And I would come to church when I felt I had to be on the good days, and I just wouldn't on the other days. And a lot of people have said to me, I didn't know you were Rick's wife. Yeah, because I don't come to church. And so I had come to church the Sunday after our trip, which would have been the first. I get mixed up on dates, but it was a normal church service, wonderful worship, good sermon. I went home. The rest of the week was normal. Bad day, good day, 2 bad days, you know. And so I went to church on October 8th, and worship was phenomenal. And I didn't feel like I was lifted into heaven. I almost felt like the angels had come down among us. I mean, it was that moving to me. And so then that ended, and then Rick began to speak, and he started telling stories about Sri Lanka. So I'm listening. Yes, he starts his sermon about 20 minutes in. All of a sudden, it was like a shutter lifted, like something clicked. And I knew within 2 seconds I had been healed. I wasn't sitting there. I hadn't fasted. I hadn't prayed that moment to be healed. I had prayed lots of moments to be healed, but not that moment. And that was October 8th. And I have felt wonderful. And I have been back to church, and people are seeing me. And I have energy, and I can start to do all kinds of things. I'm working in the nursery. I'm trying not to get ahead of the Lord, and I want him to tell me what he wants me to do, because obviously he healed me for a reason. And just trying to listen to him and continue to grow closer to him, so I can, this new chapter, I can do what he wants.
So since October 8th, it's just been really interesting to see the difference in Deb. You know, you can say you're healed of a chronic disease, and like everybody says, well, yeah, how do you know? Well, the clearest picture I can give is that when Deb told her kids, one of them she had a conversation with. They had done a video chat kind of deal, and Deb hadn't told her yet about being healed, and she called her then later to tell her about being healed, and our daughter said, I got off the phone the last time and said, man, Mom's really feeling good. She's really having a good day. The difference is remarkable, and you can see it more than anything in her eyes and in her visage. She has life, and it's because of God.
My good days, now I laugh about that, because my good days were not very good. And again, it's just the love and the mercy and the healing power of God. And so I'm so grateful. It's exciting and scary. Somebody just asked me the other night, how did it make me feel? Like, it was a very good question. And I said, very happy, but very scared. Because what now, Lord? I don't want to miss it. That's what I'm scared about. I'm not scared about the new mission. I just am a little worried that I'm going to miss what he's trying to tell me. And he said, do you feel chosen? And man, that really struck me. And so I've really been praying about that a lot, because that is really how I feel. Like, he healed me for a reason. And to put it into those words, it's very humbling. And I am just so grateful. Yes, God's power. And I just pray this healing brings glory to him.